The anime was wrong, according to my research. And by that I mean a Reddit post they made about a year ago. The Soul Eater anime apparently deviated from the manga around chapter 36. The latter third of the story is apparently different, but I can tell you that's also wrong. Half of the story is different. I want to compare and contrast all the differences between the anime and the manga. So I'm not just gonna jump to chapter 36 and then go from there. I'm reading the whole manga through a second time since I read it when I was younger. Some big changes are Kid's obsession with symmetry and order is actually his character arc, and he has a character arc, unlike in the anime. Some characters that were basically thrown under the bus in the anime have like a really compelling section dedicated to them. The exploration of madness is much more fleshed out in the manga, and the themes of corruption is just chef hand kiss, especially with Crona. Crona is easily my favorite character, more so than they already were. They're just so much more interesting in the manga. Now, funny enough, we actually don't really jump into Lovecraftian horror in the manga. We actually get a little bit more into like psychological horror, which if you ask me, I think that one's way better. And I know a lot of you may be upset with me summarizing a lot of the plot in order to make my videos evergreen, but for this video in particular, I'm going through the plot for all the people that are also too lazy to read the manga. I need everyone to be on the same page. That being said, I am cutting out so much stuff. I am trying to make it as succinct as I possibly can. You have no idea. I'm really trying to keep it short. I also just really love manga and I really love talking about it. Oh, and if you thought the fan service was bad in the anime, the manga is egregious. It's so bad. It's just unadulterated sexual harassment. The anime is actually tame compared to the manga. And before we start, I'd like to give you guys an apology. Okubo's art is good. It gets so much better. Honestly, in my previous video, I was speaking from memory, and I don't know why my younger self had such beef with the artwork. I'm sorry. Now let's get started. One thing that's glaringly apparent in the action sequences in the beginning of the manga, they're just practically non-existent. While the fight in the anime wasn't particularly long for its opening sequence, the manga is literally maybe 3 panels, which I'm not going to bash it too hard because this is very early into Okubo's career and he improves very quickly. It just showcases how much love the animators put into the show. I mentioned in my previous video how I believed Atsushi Okubo's art hadn't improved throughout his manga, and wow, I need to eat my words. I didn't realize how painful the beginning chapters looked. I've read manga where the art was unrefined in the beginning, sure, but this is just bad. What is nice is that they actually give a reason why Maka is attending the DWMA. Like, she's intentionally trying to make a Death Scythe better than her father because of how much she despises him. The main struggle with the art that I'm having is the lack of exaggeration. You need a little bit of exaggeration when creating an action-packed story in order to deliver the feeling of something making the hit or cut or slash or whatever. Without it, it leaves the page feeling stiff. She looks less like she sliced Blair and more like she tripped into it. One weird change is that no one really refers to evil souls as Kishin eggs. Like, they just call them human souls, specifically souls of corrupt humans, but the souls are still apparently not, the creepy red egg-looking things we saw from the anime. Heck, they even have a different rule where if you collect the soul of a super strong human, then that'll count as your 99 souls, and that's why Black Star sought out Mifune, which is a little ridiculous and feels cheap to me, which I would argue the change to make the corrupted souls different and distinct in the anime was a smart move. Otherwise, the obvious question of why can't I just go on a killing spree and get my 99 souls would be brought up. But in the manga, it's far more complicated, and the Kishin egg idea doesn't really work. There's only one Kishin right now, so keeping it just souls and corrupted souls in the manga is the smartest choice with where the story eventually goes. Also, if you thought the fan service in the anime was bad, it's even more egregious in the manga. Tsubaki doesn't have details of her naked body, but she's still fully nude. There's not even steam to cover up to create like the illusion of censorship. And Blackstar is intentionally trying to peek on Tsubaki in order to quote unquote train his ninja skills, and he does it more than once. It's disappointing. Blackstar even just rips off Tsubaki's clothes to entice Sid to disclose Professor Stein's location. And I mean, she's just in her underwear with a lacy stocking to boot. I mean, don't even get me started on the Liz and Patty scene. The anime made it so much more tame, I cannot tell you how much camel toe he is shoving into these pages. Guys, if I wanted this much underage boob squish, oh wait, I don't want that. Why didn't we get this treatment with Arachne? Why can't we have this sort of thing with older women? Please, can you tell my first relationship was with someone 7 years older than me? But in all seriousness, they actually cut out a lot of fan service in the anime. Like a disturbing amount. I did not remember there was this much inappropriate fan service sexual harassment when I decided to jump back in and reread the manga. No, I know, this is for young boys, and they deserve something spicy to appeal to them during these incredibly hormonal times of their life. And of course, I understand that the sex appeal and the fan service is going to be about girls, you know, around their age because they are the target demographic. You know, I can't really judge this from the perception of an adult because it was not made for an adult, it was made for technically like teenagers. And you know, teenagers should be attracted to kids the same age as them. The problem is that this is not really just fan service, this is just teaching them sexual harassment. And this is so painfully normalized in Japan. Like, have you heard about the thing where in Japan, you cannot take a picture where the shutter sound is off? Because so many people were taking underskirt pictures of girls, and that's to help combat that? It's that bad? I mean, there's better ways to do this. I didn't think I would be pointing to the sexy jutsu as not a good example, but like a better example than this. Ironically, with Blackstar, the exaggeration during the fight with Mifune is better than what he was drawing with Soul and Maka, so it seems like he is learning fast. He specifically really accelerates with this when it's Blackstar fighting. I think Blackstar just might be his favorite character, but I don't know. What I appreciate is that they're actually dropping hints this early about Blackstar having to fight his family's nature about becoming an egotistical murderer. Mifune specifically says that he can see a change in Blackstar's eyes, which we interpret as him just locking in the anime, but in actuality is foreshadowing Blackstar's character arc. You guys remember how I mentioned that Sid got less than a minute of screen time before the remedial lesson arc? Well, he got even less time, shockingly, in the manga. They never even explain why he was turned into a zombie or why he died. He's just like that, it just happened. What I feel is a major disservice is that Stein is supposed to show and introduce what high-level Meisters are capable of. But Sid is also supposed to do the same. They never mention specifically that Sid reached the highest rank of Meister before dying, and him using a tombstone to fight isn't just for aesthetic purposes, it's to show that he's so skilled as a Meister that he can hold his own without a partner weapon, and setting up the whole fighting your fear will push you to become stronger theme that's present throughout the whole story. But you already knew that. I also don't remember them mentioning that Stein is the strongest Meister to graduate from the DWMA, but a lot of this can just be due to how it was translated into English. I never watched the sub. Now that doesn't mean I only watched dubbed. That doesn't mean I only did. I used to believe sub was better than dub, and that's because when anime was first making its way to America, sub was better than dub because they didn't have a lot of quality voice actors or directors to actually make it good. They were doing everything as cheaply as possible. I mean, that's kind of the whole idea of importing media instead of making your own. That's not an issue anymore, because anime is mainstream and you make a lot of money off of it, so you can invest more money into making it good so that you can make more money later on, and now dub and sub are basically equal. The first time the term Kishin is even mentioned is when they introduce Medusa and Crona. Medusa wanting to turn Crona into a Kishin. Crona and Ragnarok is supposed to be an incredibly unique discovery, where it isn't corruption that turned Crona and Ragnarok into a monster, but the fact that it's Crona's blood, which they make obvious in the anime, but we were operating under the assumption with, like, Jack the Ripper, that if you are corrupted enough, you turn into a weapon as well, when I don't really think that was supposed to be the case. The DWMA was made to defeat Kishins, yes, well technically it's made to defeat witches, but in the manga, a Kishin is a very rare abomination. The people we've seen defeated up until this point were still technically human. The students hunt bad humans and witches specifically. The rank 3 Meisters hunt down those about to have already turned into a Kishin. The premise of the main antagonist is even different. Apparently, good souls provide more power than evil souls, and the first person to take a good soul didn't do so because they were afraid of everything. They ate a good soul because they were afraid of death coming for him eventually. He wanted power to literally fight against death. That's how a Kishin was born. And Soul getting the black blood into his body is extra troubling because it could drive Soul to become a Kishin. So if there's any biblical themes in this story, which, like, there's kind of sort of a little bit, but not really, it makes more sense now. Like, this just feels like we're hearkening to when Cain killed Abel. And when Sid initially talked about becoming a zombie to release himself from the fear of death, oh look, we're doing something with that this time. It's almost like that's kind of the entire premise of the story that was practically thrown away in the anime. I think it's very clear that Atsushi Okubo was really trying to push Black Star's almost split personality early on, having switched to not only being more aggressive, but darn near murderous, even threatening civilians that he'll kill them during Tsubaki's fight against Masamune. It's just far more intense in the manga. The fight with the immortal werewolf Free was also way more interesting. I didn't really cover Free in my previous video because he was basically just used for a short training arc that didn't amount to much. But once Maka realized their souls were out of sync and she couldn't use him to fight, Tsubaki offered herself to help Maka, and she actually took her up on the offer. Free even specifically talks about how his immortal wolf clan is basically oppressed by death's rules and how he wants to rebel against the system. The rest of the events of this fight play out the same. Tsubaki yells at them to get along, but there's a level of depth that was just removed from the anime. Maka learns that she doesn't want to get stronger independently, she needs to get stronger with Soul as a team. What's glaringly obvious is that the anime, for some reason, decided to leave out the motivation behind practically every major character. Medusa's being one of them. The reason she wants to resurrect the first Kishin Ashura is because she believes that his power is the next stage of natural evolution, and that death is actually holding humanity back, like the Grim Reaper death, the Shinigami. She believes that what she's trying to do is in some way righteous. Medusa is a far more complex character in the manga. Like, the manga tries to show you different forms of madness and how that drives people to different forms of corruption in their own explicitly unique ways. Medusa is also someone corrupted by that madness. The only difference is that she wants to be corrupted. She's one of those people that's just a horrible person all the way through. And I really appreciate when a writer just decides to make a villain true and proper evil. Oh, and just for frame of reference, this is volume 5. We're nowhere near the end of the manga, and this much is different. In the fight between Maka and Crona, it becomes apparent why Medusa needed to abuse Crona. Her goal was to make Crona as scared and paranoid as the first Kishin, in hopes of creating someone that could retread Ashura's legacy. The only flaw is that Ashura had the drive to fight for himself while Crona lacks that power, which is why her experiment with her child isn't working. Just as usual, Ashura gets awakened. One key detail that they allude to is that the reason Ashura is such a threat is that he's become so powerful in his own right that he's supposedly ascended to a level of power equal to the Grim Reaper Death himself. Thus, the reason why he's still alive. Death hasn't been able to kill him, he's only able to seal him away. And there is a lot more details around this that I will cover later in this video. What they didn't elaborate on when talking about how Arachne is the mother of magic weapons is that Arachne used to hunt other witches and fuse their souls with humans. Witches are able to transform their bodies naturally, and so she wanted to fuse that power with people to get them to transform into weapons. She's 800 years old and despised by all witches for what she did. She's considered a heretic, and Tsubaki is a direct descendant of the demon weapons Arachne created, which is why she has so many different forms. And the reason the DWMA was founded was because there's so many kids that inherited this ability to transform, but they are incomplete without a witch's soul, so they need to hunt down these witches. Medusa's sway over Stein is a bit better nuanced in the manga. What she argues is that the fear they've been taught to hold onto so as not to fall into madness is really just an excuse Death is using to maintain power. And that Stein, as a scientist in the same vein as Medusa, should understand that gods walking among people means they could be considered our equals. So why should Death be held to such a higher standard? The oddly vague confrontation between Arachne and Medusa is also elaborated. Arachne saying that she hates Medusa because they were supposed to engage in an assault against Death 800 years ago, but Medusa betrayed her and left her to fight Death one-on-one in hopes of getting rid of Arachne. I know I'm harping on this a lot, but again, they just do a better job regularly touching base with Blackstar's slow descent into his darker nature. Just before they fight arachnophobia for Brew, the beast inside the enchanted sword even tells Blackstar that he's slowly looking more demonic as he's recklessly pursuing more power. And when they were learning about Team Resonance, Blackstar and Maka's fighting is supposed to show how Blackstar is not only ahead of Maka, but also that him being rude is more of a symptom of his reckless pursuit of power. The story actually deviates right after they fail to retrieve Brew, and they call in BJ. You ever wonder why he was introduced to the plot and then they didn't really do anything with him? That's why. They realized that since Stein is getting more crazy than he should be, then there has to be a mole at the DWMA. And BJ is here to find out who it is. And BJ is also Marie's ex-boyfriend. More importantly, he's actually a human lie detector. It's through his interrogations that he figured out Marie has one of Medusa's snakes planted inside her, and she uses her power of electricity to neutralize the snake. Oh, that's so much cooler than in the anime. BJ was nothing but a mechanic in the anime, and he did nothing except complain about coffee, which isn't even a character trait that he has in the manga. I completely cut him out of my previous video covering the anime because he wasn't relevant whatsoever. BJ is actually a very important linchpin of what's about to happen. And with the direction that they went with the anime, he clearly had no place in the anime story, so no wonder they didn't do anything with him. Blackstar, on the other hand, is being told that he can't use the uncanny sword mode, that his soul is literally on the verge of collapse because he's been trying to use it so much, and Blackstar doesn't accept it because he still believes he'll be able to transcend the gods, that normal rules don't apply to him. Maka overhears Crona talking to Iruka and finds out that Crona is actually the mole, and that Medusa is alive. It's during the one-on-one sparring match between Kid and Blackstar that Sid is actually the one who calls out Blackstar is slowly following in his father's footsteps. The evil eye of the White Star appears in Blackstar at this moment, not during the final battle between him and Mifune. Now, Sid does make a reference to Blackstar's change in character in the anime. It just has so much more impact with how they're doing it in the manga. BJ's soul perception is actually so powerful that he manages to break through the soul protect that witches use to conceal their presence, which is why he's so good at lie detection. He realizes there's maybe 10 or more witches walking around the city unnoticed, and Medusa goes out of her way to get rid of him before he can be of any more of a threat, or at least that's what they want us to think. The problem is, They're still operating under the assumption that Medusa was defeated, and the most likely suspect who could have gotten that snake into Marie and who had the most motive to kill BJ was Stein. So they put him under arrest. Now, Crona is still the person that put the snake into Marie, but they don't know that. They also believe Stein wouldn't actually do it, and they believe in him more than anyone, and if they bring him back to the DWMA, there's no doubt he'll get the death penalty. So they plan to lie to Death, the Shinigami, tell him Stein ran off before they could get him, so that Stein has a chance to go prove his innocence. Marie decides to go with him in hopes of keeping Stein from going mad, as well as wanting to find who killed her ex. Tsubaki actually gets Blackstar to ditch school and go on a solo trip, their destination being Tsubaki's parents, all the while Crona still leaves the DWMA just when Maka was about to confront them, and only Maka knows the truth behind the situation. The confrontation of the weird clown goes down differently too. It wasn't really Kid who fought the clown. Both Kid and Maka were sent to investigate an old factory. The clown is supposed to be an agent of Ashura, not of Eibon, saying it's a contagion of madness, luring people to the factory to turn them. The clown fuses its soul with the host, showing them their worst fear to try and seduce them into madness. In this instance, it's Soul who managed to reach out to Maka, showing her that his piano is infused with madness, and they agree that madness is the source of courage as well, one not being able to exist without the other. So they can control their madness so long as they can control their courage. Soul allows Maka to play his piano, and it breaks the clown's hold on her, allowing her to fight back, and she unlocks an upgraded soul resonance, the Devil Hunter. The idea is that madness is literally contagious, and this clown's entire goal is to spread that contagion. But Maka was able to confront madness directly and overcome it with her courage. Madness is now at a point where it's becoming so potent it's becoming physical. You don't need to consume a bunch of souls in order to become a monster. Now, monsters like the clown and other clowns are just appearing out of the ether of madness. But funny enough, when I think about it, there's actually a bit of common ground between Blackstar and Medusa, which they never really have any connection in the story whatsoever. Like, both of them are trying to understand the powers of a god. Blackstar becoming his own god, and denying the concept that humans can't be more than what they are. That humans in and of themselves are their own form of god. Medusa wanting to understand the Kishin, which in this world is literally the god of madness, and thinking that she can understand that the framework and the stepping stones of how to become a god. And there is a big twist at the end about Ashura and the Kishin, about how he is the god of madness and how that works. So if this is your first time experiencing the story, I won't spoil it, but it is, I realize, that big twist at the end makes it to where Blackstar is the only one that's right, and Medusa's methodology is flawed from the beginning, and it's because of a secret that Medusa was never privy to, and I think that's so sad. Sid receives a letter from an anonymous person, it saying that there's 3 witches that have infiltrated Death City, and also apparently Kim and her weapon Jackie are witches, characters that have only been a side character up until now. They're apparently living a double life as both a witch and a student at the DWMA. They seem to be just regular people who want to attend school with no ill motive. Also, the 2 hosts from Chupacabras, the Bottle Girls, the place that Maka's dad frequents, are also witches now apparently, and they're spies for Arachne, bad ones, and they're swiftly arrested, showing that what BJ said about there being like maybe 10 or more witches in Death City is true. Now they're going to have to investigate Kim and Jackie, and they attempt to arrest them, but both of them manage to get away. Nigus was actually trying to tell them that they were going to listen to their side of the story, but Kim and Jackie were too afraid to hear her. Feeling like they have no other choice and taking advantage of their misfortune, they join forces with Arachne. Not knowing what else they can do, funny enough, Medusa still hands herself over to the DWMA, her being the one who gave them the anonymous list of witches, and she still gives the DWMA brew. The difference is that what she bargains for in exchange for the location of Baba Yaga Castle is that she wants to have full operational command of the assault to capture the castle. Since Blackstar is out playing hooky, it's finally time for Ox and Killick to have some time in the limelight, them being closest to Jackie and Kim. They ask Maka and Sol to be part of a small unit to infiltrate Arachne's castle. Maka confronts Medusa about Crona, and Medusa claims that the reason she's so adamant on taking down Arachne is because Arachne has Crona and plans to use Crona as a human sacrifice. Of course, Sol tells Maka that this is Medusa we're talking about, and maybe we shouldn't be trusting what she says at face value. While undercover inside the castle, Ox veers off from the team to find Kim, and she promptly and uncharacteristically stabs him right in the gut. Her mind now swayed by Arachne's moral manipulation machine. If she wasn't evil before, well, she is now. Just then, all the alarms start to go off. Someone outside storms the castle at super speed, bursting forth. Blackstar arrives. The secret weapon sent by Death to throw a wrench into Medusa's plan. This way, she won't fully have all the cards. And here we get the showdown between Blackstar and Mifune. So they deviated from the plot halfway through the story, but only decided to change some things. Like, big story beats are still clearly there. Things that either weren't necessary to change, things that, you know, characters were thrown under the bus, or just changed how we ended up at the exact same place. So Blackstar has apparently just been hanging out with Tsubaki at her parents' house to let him cool his jets and clear his mind. He rested and did some self-reflection, and that's how he came to terms with the darkness inside of him and how he reconciled that he doesn't want to go down the path of the demon like his father. Once again, Tsubaki is there to help Blackstar, even saying that if Blackstar is the darkness in the sky, that Tsubaki must be the stars shining with him. Together, they faced the stag that dwells within Tsubaki, who has been critical of Blackstar since they acquired the enchanted sword, and Tsubaki lets the stag fuse with her to face Blackstar and let him prove himself. It's here where he faced the souls of all the people who sought ultimate strength and failed. All of the predecessors of Blackstar, all of their memories flowed into him, all of their pain and failures. And for the first time, Blackstar experienced despair. He claimed the tears he shed were for them, not for his fears. Fueled by passion, he vows to fight for all of those before him who lost, and vows to bring the dead back to life so they can continue their goal and clear their regrets. The stag gives back Tsubaki's body, and now they can face their challenge together. Showcasing their newfound strength against Mifune, Blackstar unveils their new ability, the Chain of Darkness. In fact, every weapon form now has an upgrade. This battle is very intense in the manga, and the fact that I can't showcase how well done it is makes me only recommend you go read this for yourself. Blackstar fights Mifune on equal terms, proving to him, Mifune, and even Sid, that he is going to avenge the dead, even if it means killing those who stand in the way. Back to Ox, his partner Harver finds him while he's bleeding out, and he doesn't have a crush on Kim, so it's easy for him to fight back. Ox knows that Kim is brainwashed, but Harver isn't convinced. They're witches, and it's more than likely they've always been this way, so he takes matters into his own hands and neutralizes Kim. Or that's what they think. Somehow her wound heals because she's a witch and they have magic and she's back on her feet. Ox finally gets his head in the game and squares up to Kim. Kim argues that she can't change being a witch and no one will accept her, just like how Ox won't change that stupid haircut of his, even though everyone tells him it's ridiculous. How can she expect anyone to accept her back at school? So Ox's big character arc is to rip off his stupid hair pillars and show her that people can change, telling her that if she doesn't want to go back to the DWMA, that if she doesn't have a place to call home, that he'll make one for her. Okay. I mean, I kind of like how we're doing the whole, cutting the hair trope with a guy this time. Usually it's a girl cutting their long hair to show they've changed. But like, this is how he gets the girl? Don't get me wrong, what Ox said about I will make a home for you, that was amazing. That was great. But anyway, this is a whole big epic battle. So I'm gonna give you the Cliff Notes version of this whole confrontation instead of going through every single little confrontation, because there's a lot of them that kind of amount to something, but not really. If you want the full picture, just go read the manga yourself. This all takes place in volumes 12, 13, and 14, just so you know. And with that being said, I am so glad they're focusing on the side characters, especially since Killick was so cool in the anime and didn't get any character. Kim becomes so important and it's not even funny. Now, they don't dwell on them too long, sadly, but what we do get turns them into a cool side character, into like something that I can actually be a fan of instead of just, yeah, there's that one guy that did that cool thing that one time. Apparently, the person that's chilling inside Arachne's room isn't Ashura. It's actually a man who calls himself Eibon. Now, without his cool getup, Kid brought Brew with him into the castle. Don't know why. And when Kid was about to die, Brew activated. And that's what connected his hair stripe. Brew actually amplifies souls as well, which, when one of the lines of Sanzu connects, it actually makes Death's mask crack, like it somehow made him weaker. Now, pay attention to this because this is actually the start of Kid's character arc. So their goal is to destroy all 8 demon tool locks that are in Arachne's castle, and skipping over a lot of fighting, mission successful. Now they can enter Arachne's room, but the door was booby-trapped, and it turns Soul, Maka, and Medusa into puppets. Random flashback, apparently the reason Soul is reluctant to play the piano is because he keeps comparing himself to his more talented older brother. He joined the DWMA mostly because he wanted to get away from his family. We have a freaky, cool sequence where Soul almost gives into Arachne's influence before Maka cuts the strings and brings them back to normal. Everyone is okay now. That whole sequence is just for Soul, showing that Soul and Maka's connection is what makes them stronger, and a little bit of backstory about Soul. Finally confronting Arachne, she's seemingly dead. Oh nope, she's actually just become madness itself, because you can just do that apparently. Her real goal is to attune herself to the Kishin, and this will somehow make her the mother of quote-unquote all things. Insert obligatory mommy joke here. Kid finds the man who calls himself Eibon and an even more powerful mosquito squaring up, and discovers that this snazzy dude is an imposter. He has Eibon's book and all the wisdom of Eibon, so he's just accepted that gives him the right to be Eibon. His goal is to collect everything into the Book of Eibon, a compendium of complete knowledge. His real name is Noah, and he sucks up Kid into his book, trapping him. Now that Arachne has shown her true nature, we get to see these awesome displays of how people's souls are being ruptured and brought into madness, and the only person who may have a chance to fend off the madness is Soul's piano. He figures if Arachne is using a spiritual web to infect everyone's souls, then maybe he can connect to that web with his piano and counteract it, utilizing their resonance. Soul emits a calming melody that dismantles the madness wavelength, echoing throughout the souls of everyone in the castle. Arachne finally shows herself, and utilizing the black blood as an armored dress, they can finally begin to fight her the only way you can fight a fleshless creature, using their souls. Arachne used too much of her strength trying to turn everyone mad, leaving an opening for Maka to finally finish her off. Not only that, but Maka finally defeated a witch, and Soul can now consume Arachne's soul to become a death scythe. Oh, thank goodness, a satisfying death for Arachne. Leagues better than Ashura having a hissy fit. I really love how Okubo draws the psychological aspects of this story. How it's scratchy and how they're like in a void, showing that they can't experience anything other than what they're feeling. They can't think of anything other than what they're currently experiencing, and what they experience is so distorted that it's drawn distorted. But Medusa seems strangely absent. The flesh of Arachne rises, and Medusa's plan to steal her sister's body is finally complete. Now she can turn against the students. Medusa openly explains that she lied about Crona being captured so that Manga would fall right into her plan. More importantly, Medusa was scared of BJ's soul perception breaking through the witch's soul protect, and it's clear to her that Manga is more than likely going to develop that ability as well. So Manga needs to die, but she also explains that she isn't the one who killed BJ, and that there's someone else other than Stein who is the killer. Monkey to the rescue! Turns out there's a Meister monkey that Death sent as backup a long time ago, and his weapon is some dude with a big bear mask, and so they're here as a convenient getaway from Manga and Soul. Choosing the smarter route, Medusa bounces so that she can concoct some other plan to take them out. We could have had a Kung Fu monkey in the anime. We could have had a Kung Fu monkey. Well, now I'm doubly mad. Also, don't worry about the Monkey Meister and the bear-headed guy. They actually aren't all that important to the story at the very end. I'm really glad I reread the manga for this video. This is awesome. The only problem is that they still don't know where Crona is. According to Medusa, Crona isn't the same anymore. Somewhere, for some reason, Crona is changing. As for the little witch Angela and Kim, Death comes up with a plan with them for Kim to train Angela so that she doesn't turn evil and she grows up. And they're even willing to use the morality manipulation machine Arachne developed in order to keep the little girl from going bad. Justin, on the other hand, has been changing as of late. He's talking about how he now sees the way thanks to the clown, and Marie and Stein finally managed to confront him and take him down for the murder of BJ. And after a very quick confrontation, Justin understands that he's at a major disadvantage and uses his own demon tool to retreat. Not knowing what else to do, they return to the DWMA, while Stein still has a death warrant on him. Now they have to worry about a whole new regime led by Noah, the false Eibon. And they have to face a newly dubbed Death Scythe. Soul isn't the only one that evolved. Maka's soul is apparently what's called a Grigori soul, an incredibly rare breed that actually allows her to fly. I mean, Soul can't have all the cool upgrades when Manga is the one who did the majority of the work, all the while they're putting Kid to work doing anything they can to pull information out of him. I'm glad Kid is actually getting a spotlight. When you boil it down, he was pretty useless in the anime. Almost everything he did didn't really amount to much. He was just collecting stuff for his dad. Funny enough, in the character polls for when the manga was being released, Kid is actually the most popular character. I still personally don't see it, but my heart belongs to Black Star. But Kid is legitimately a cool character in the manga. Of course, Noah has a Grigori soul on their team as well, some twerp named Gopher who can shoot a cannon straight out of their stomach, and Gopher has some sort of inferiority complex against Maka and an obsession with Noah, saying that the body Gopher has was developed by Noah, and yet it's not enough to stand against the brutal skill and resolve of Maka's soul. Gopher's goal is to be a part of Noah's collection, and if he proves himself worthy, the collection is like the ultimate reward to him. The Thompson sisters are now teamed up with Killick, switching between the guns and the gauntlets depending on whether or not he needs long-range or close-range weapons. And him and Kim are currently trying to find Medusa's hidden research locations. They discover that Medusa is experimenting with madness to create man-made clowns to embolden her forces. Even Medusa wants to eventually resonate her soul with the Kishin and acquire the Kishin for herself. Killick may not have a story arc, sadly, but he has leveled up his skills, and now his shamans, Fire and Thunder, can act as pseudo-meisters themselves. I'm just glad they're finally utilizing Killick. He was so dang cool in the anime, and they didn't really do anything with him. I wish he got his own character arc. They eventually kind of forget about him in the manga. Since I know there's not a lot of black anime characters, let alone good black anime characters, I want to highlight it when I see it, which is why I'm putting a bit of a focus on Killick. Sadly, as Blackstar and Tsubaki are searching in another country for more of Medusa's research, they learn the hard way that Medusa is still using Crona as her primary subject for experimentation. And the madness is so ingrained in Crona already that a whole new beast is born. Now Crona has 3 demon swords. Blackstar tries to beat sense into Crona for having betrayed Maka and leaving the DWMA, but Crona seems to not have any memory of Maka or the DWMA. Only inklings of what happened linger in their mind. Whenever they think about Maka too much, Crona goes into a frenzy where their brain is actively shutting out the memory and the guilt. Remember those witches from the Cabaret Club that were arrested? Well, Death asks for their help. Since Noah is only an imposter, the Book of Eibon he's using is also just a copy. Death wants the Cabaret witches to try and create a magic link between the original copy and the copy he has in hopes of securing a way to get Kid back. Also, Blackstar captured Iruka, so with those 3 and Kim, there's 4 witches able to work on this mission. The witches managed to get the students into the book, and now all they need to do is traverse its pages to find Kid. Inside, they meet the personification of the Index, and it talks about Kid and how Kid is apparently a fragment of a great old one, and he's infected from birth with the madness of order, which is why he has the obsession with symmetry. So the Book of Eibon mimics Dante's Inferno to a certain degree, where there's 7 chapters for the 7 deadly sins, and each is a challenge. Of course, the first one is lust, so we get a gender bend episode, and they have to overcome their horniness in the face of a succubus. And yes, the way they defeat the succubus is because Blair is there, and Blair is more alluring than the succubus, and the succubus goes goo goo gaga. Finally, Blair is useful for something, I guess. I thought we were past this. Okubo is a painfully horny dude, but I won't lie, I would also probably fail to win this chapter of the Book of Eibon. I'm weak like that, not gonna lie, yeah. There's a reason I make a lot of horny jokes in my videos. Those jokes come very naturally to me, and I'm sorry if it's not to your taste. I just don't really have a negative stigma around sex like some people do. So horny jokes are all in good fun for me, and I understand when it's a bit too much at times, and I do cut some out. The ironic part is I cut some out, and there's more than you haven't seen. In more interesting news, Kid is in the deepest recesses of the book and is face to face with one of the original Great Old Ones. And it talks to Kid saying that Ashura, and Death are all Great Old Ones. Only 5 old ones remain after Ashura consumed 3 of them, the 5 remaining being order, knowledge, power, anger, and fear, which is technically, Kid is order, knowledge is the Index, power is Blackstar, fear is Ashura, Kid is drenched in the old one's madness and he is infected with it, now disgusted with the world and what's around him. He starts to be obsessed with the idea of pure darkness, where everything is omnisymmetrical. His concept of perfect order, where death is the only way to achieve this perfection. So we're kind of doing like a fan interpretation of H.P. Lovecraft. I was wondering when H.P. Lovecraft was going to make a comeback in this story, besides just using Eibon. And this is pretty much the major concept that they use throughout the rest of the story. A lot of Noah's Ark... Get it? Yeah. A lot of Noah's Ark doesn't contribute much to the plot. I mean, especially riding off the coattails of Arachne's death, Noah is a very lackluster character. And I'm not just saying that because I really like women and I'm goo goo gaga over Arachne. Arachne filled out a lot of the history that we didn't understand in the story. Noah is just a fake Eibon, and they don't really do much to elaborate why Eibon is so important. Skipping over a lot of plot that is not relevant, Kid opens a portal specifically just for Blackstar, who, now being persuaded by the 7 sins, primarily that of wrath and pride, jumps in and decides to face Kid in a one-on-one duel. Neither of them have their weapons, but Blackstar is determined to pay back Kid for helping Blackstar snap out of his funk before he vowed to avenge the dead. But the Great Old One appears to beseech the power of madness onto Blackstar as well. But Blackstar refuses the power, and after some butt kicking, he really just talks sense into Kid, saying that nothingness is a rejection of life and death. So it's pretty lazy thinking on Kid's part when he's supposed to eventually become the next Shinigami. And so Kid just snaps out of it, for the first time utilizing his obsession with order to his advantage. And the Great Old One says, well, you guys seem like you're cool, and they just lets them out of the book. At the same time, the teachers are trying to confront Noah and Justin. Then Bear Guy gets killed, Sid loses an arm, and they all get their butts handed to them by the weird monsters that Noah keeps in his book. Just when he summons a manticore is also the moment when the kids manage to get out of the book. Kid seems to have a better understanding of what it means for him to be a Shinigami and what it means for him to eventually take over his father's position and become the leader of a new world. And his second line of Sanzu connects. Death's mask cracks one more time, and Kid single-handedly takes out a behemoth of a monster and takes down Noah in one great attack, leaving only the Book of Eibon, that of which Gopher steals the book, gets away, and Kid realizes, shucks, Brew was still in that book. Now they have both. Honestly, confusing and anticlimactic. They're trying to frame it like Kid's revelation is something that only a god could understand. Something that is a vision only someone of his caliber could comprehend. Which I guess works, it's just, I don't get it. So it doesn't have much of an impact. Or maybe I do get it and it's just not as complicated as I'm making it, as I think it may be. This isn't just symmetry, it's advanced symmetry. What this arc does do for Kid is it gives him the ability to utilize his obsession with order in a manner that actually helps him grow, which I feel is like the entire point of this little arc. There is a line that Kid says that I feel is actually great commentary on our society. He wanted everything, wanted to collect everything, and that's what he tried to do, but that was it. There didn't seem to be anything else driving him. He was empty. When people want something, it's usually because they want to do something with it. There's some purpose that drives their need to possess things, but not with Noah. And as someone who has a strong background from a collector standpoint, I mean, my papa collected a bunch of stuff, and I was into card games, and I had maybe 5 other collections going on at the same time that I couldn't really keep up with because it was just like the thing I was using to cope with a bunch of stuff. The mindset of, if I want something, it has to have a purpose, has kept me from wasting a lot of money. I used to buy collector's editions of video games, and now they don't bring me any joy. They sit in a closet. Those steelbooks sure look really cool, but geez, that I don't do anything with them. Now I just save money by buying a physical CD on eBay for like half the price, maybe 3 months later. I'll buy the cheapest version possible because I play the video game once and that's it. Like, why am I paying for a super fancy collector's version? Noah, as a character, and more importantly, how shallow he is, I think is a great commentary on the hyper-consumerism we have as a society. Beyond that, Stein talks about the danger of the Book of Eibon. It gives the holder the potential to gain knowledge of all things, but if people could know everything, then they'd cease to think altogether. It would be the equivalent of ceasing to live. Kind of like if you see all the potential futures in that could possibly unravel, then nothing will ever surprise you. And being alive wouldn't really have much meaning anymore. Paul Atreides? Our ignorance is actually part of what makes life interesting, because we can't grow if there isn't any room to grow. However, the index that was inside the Book of Eibon seems to be focused on spreading the outpour of knowledge that Eibon has created, exploring different concepts and archetypes of madness. Kid being the madness of order, and now we have a concept of the madness of knowledge from the book. Either released or summoned is a man that looks very similar to Noah, but is apparently not Noah. And here's the funny thing. Noah and the Index are actually now completely irrelevant to the plot. The only thing you need to know is that Noah owns the Book of Eibon right now, and you'll understand why that makes sense at the very end. I'm sure they were setting something up for them, especially the Index, but it doesn't go anywhere. The Book of Eibon in itself isn't even important. Broo being inside the Book of Eibon is what's important. So there's points where the Index and Noah are mentioned in the story later on, and I will be ignoring those until the very end, because that's the only point where they're actually important. Sol starts to feel pain in the scar where Crona first hurt him, and we see Crona is actively hunting down other death scythes as training to perfect the black blood. They seem to have an obsession with squashing out every inch of light in the world, especially the light of that smile. Still racked with guilt, Crona is now becoming an absolute terror with their own perfection of madness, and Manga is the target. Crona seems to be able to convert actual people into massive black orbs that actively emit madness wavelengths. These two orbs were the two people Crona most recently killed, recovered by the DWMA. Manga tries to slice through them in hopes to stop their spread of madness, but the moment Sol touches it, he becomes unlike himself, forcing Manga out of the room, talking about how much pain his scar is causing him, and his scar tears open into its own madness wavelength emitting beacon. And inside of Sol, the red ogre that's been egging him on is finally starting to take control. Sol, in his delusioned state, uses sound waves to transmit madness attacks, and Professor Stein is doing everything he can do to control the situation. The ogre tries to beat down Sol, telling him how he ran away from his brother, too scared to follow in his footsteps, in fear of not living up to the expectations. And turns out the ogre growing in size was just a trick to try to get Sol to give in to madness. Sol was never running away from his brother. He always felt like he was just running towards something new, carving his own path, and the madness emissions start to subside until he's back to normal. Just as we thought everything was back to normal, someone comes in to report to Stein that there's a town in Ukraine that has a problem. Crona trapped the entire town in a madness bubble that they can't escape from, and Crona is now placed on Shinigami's list of people that need to be exterminated. Crona, having dinner with Medusa, Medusa praises Crona, telling them that they've done a wonderful job, doing everything she said, developing the black blood, praising and praising and praising them. But Crona feels nothing. Crona can't feel. They were trained not to feel, to cast aside love in pursuit of the black blood. Medusa stands up and hugs Crona. The first time Medusa has ever shown Crona affection, and it makes Crona angry. How dare she do this? How could she show them love? Crona wasn't allowed to have love. Why does she get to hold on to love? It's not fair. And so Crona stabs, and stabs, and stabs, which, as it always is exactly what Medusa wanted. Now, the black blood is complete. This is even more tragic than what Crona originally was in the anime. Because I'm not sure this is explicitly stated, but how I interpret that is that this was still all part of Medusa's plan. For someone as difficult to kill as Medusa, she should have been able to worm her way out of this, and I think she chooses not to. She wanted Crona to kill her, out of Crona's own volition, because that would mean it completes her experiment. That would mean Crona is finally at a point where Crona has the bloodlust that they've always needed to follow in the footsteps of Ashura. To her, Crona having no worldly connections not only shows Crona is fully consumed by the madness, but also means that there is nothing holding Crona back to ascending to godhood. And what's sad is that Crona should be able to revel in killing their mom. There should be a strong catharsis that Crona gets to experience by murdering their abuser. They finally get to do it. It should bring closure, and it doesn't because Crona can't feel. Crona is trained not to feel. Now they're so close to just acting on instinct. So not even this can be satisfying for them. The satisfaction has been ripped away from them by Medusa as well. There's only one flaw in Medusa's plan, and that's the fact that she heavily underestimated how much Crona feels connected to Manga. Medusa's death was really satisfying in the anime, and we don't get the same kind of death from Medusa in the manga. The purpose of Medusa's death in the manga has far more impact, I will admit that. But I just really liked Manga getting the catharsis of saying, no, you gotta die. Saying, sorry, I like Crona. Crona doesn't deserve you. No one deserves you. You deserve to die, and I will be the one who does the dying of you. Manga's soul perception has now become so powerful that she decides to try to find Crona. Using soul resonance, she extends her soul perception to the whole world, tuning into Crona's soul, but what she finds instead is the location of the Kishin Ashura. And the reason they could never find Ashura is because he's hiding on the moon. While Death is gathering all the Death Scythes and forming a team to go to the moon to capture Ashura, building an airship capable of escaping the atmosphere, Manga eventually does figure out where Crona is hiding. Right back where they first met, the Santa Maria Novella Basilica. Kid readies himself for the war on the moon, jumping down to begin the raid, and there to meet them is Justin and several more madness clowns created to protect the Kishin. The flaws they didn't account for is that Stein is still the most susceptible to the madness wavelengths. In a war between order and madness, he's the least orderly of them all. And the way he's fighting is haphazard, bloody, without reason. Spirit clearly sees that Stein can't fight the madness growing inside of him. Even if it's a gamble, Stein needs to give in to the madness so that he has a chance to take down Justin. With one final blitz, Stein and Marie manage to finally take Justin down. On Earth, in Italy, the elite team is there to back up Manga as Death puts out a warrant on Crona's life. Finally confronting them, Manga immediately tries to reason with Crona, hoping they'll come back home on their own. But Crona still can't remember who Manga is, only her name. Crona tells her how they killed Medusa, how they've been forced to let go of everything they hold close to them. Now the only one left is Manga. Before they have a chance to fight, Crona bursts down the door, wanting to finish his promise on absorbing the Kishin, to twist the world into an image as broken as Crona. Okay, here's the part that genuinely pisses me off. You thought the pervy stuff was over? Oh no. He decided to sneak in, not even sneak in, he decided to add something really gross just before the whole story's over. Death is asking Kid to go to the witches in order to ask for backup. They tell them that no one except for witches is allowed to see how they open a portal to the realm of witches, so they ask them to turn around. And the way they open the portal is by lifting up her skirt and using her butt to draw out the symbols that open the portal. Listen, I agree. Fan service isn't inherently a bad thing. High School DD? Peak. Loved it. Wonderful story. I'm down to watch ecchi, borderline NSFW stuff. Sure. But dude, come on. Preferably not on me. Kid is brought to the realm of witches, arrested and put on trial, and he just actively begs for the help of the witches, saying that, yeah, hey guys, maybe the Kishin is a way bigger threat than us, and maybe if Kim can get along with us, then we can all get along. Also, Noah and Gopher are here, and Sid just kind of accepts them along since there's bigger issues to deal with. They go into the moon, drop a flare, and they easily find the Kishin sending out illusions to scare them away from him, venturing into the deepest pit of the moon. Ashura finally confronts them face to face, and the fight doesn't last long because Crona appears just in time to interrupt them, conjuring a black blood vortex around Ashura and swallows him, consuming all the madness that Ashura was emitting, and now has everything they need to make do on their promise of destroying the world. Crona is now so strong they're making the moon laugh madness. Free tries to teleport the weaker soldiers to safety, but accidentally brings Kid and Stein with him, Now only Manga and Blackstar are able to stand up against Crona. Manga finally chooses to no longer hesitate and beat some sense into Crona. Crona is now able to manipulate people's resonance, and now Blackstar and Manga can't resonate with their own weapons, and they have to figure out a way to fight without them. Spirit manages to intervene just in time and offers himself to Manga as a weapon, claiming that Crona can't disrupt the resonance between a father and his daughter. Together, they're able to tear through Crona's defenses, and Crona starts breaking down as they can't comprehend how a connection between family can be more powerful than them, when the only thing their mother did was turn them into a monster. Crona is wrapped into a cocoon, and inside, the Kishin awakens, Crona unable to hold him back. Kid manages to make his way back to the moon just in time. Sol and Manga reunite, needing to formulate a bond stronger than they ever have before if they hope to defeat Ashura. And now, the final fight can begin. Ashura seems excited to fight Kid, saying that him and Kid are siblings. Both of them are fragments of Death the Shinigami. Death wanted to be a being of order, and so he cast off his fear. And that fear manifested into Ashura. Similar to how Kid is so obsessed with order, Kid being the manifestation of Death's desires to maintain order. Manga and Blackstar attack the Kishin, telling Kid that he's not like Ashura, that Kid loves humanity and Ashura can't be even a shadow of a Shinigami if he only deals in death, if he only deals in fear. That Kid is more than Ashura could ever hope to be, and wanting to follow in his father's footsteps, Kid connects the third line of Sanzu, unlocking his full abilities as a Shinigami. As he does, Death crumbles, passing along his position to his son, as he always intended. Now Kid is the new god of death. Kid finally understands the madness of order that's been dwelling inside of him his whole life. The kind of madness that's always dwelled within his father and yet never fully utilized because Death always had faith that humanity never needed a tyrannical order to rule over them. Kid now understands what it means to hold the power of a god. Ashura, now furious, causes a diversion, bypassing Kid entirely and strikes through Manga. What Ashura doesn't realize is that is exactly what Manga and Sol needed. Sol unleashes their black blood at full blast. Instead of succumbing to madness, they utilize it, they synchronize with it. And Manga unveils a new form, a form that can reach Crona inside of Ashura. Blackstar holds the Kishin at bay, charging at the Kishin, playing the piano of blood. They penetrate Ashura's armor, reaching into him, and enter his body to search for Crona. Crona manages to apologize, finding a moment of clarity and a plan. Crona managed to find the Book of Eibon inside the Kishin and brew along with it. Crona tells Manga that they can defeat the Kishin again if they use brew, but Crona will have to sacrifice themselves to defeat Ashura. Wanting to make amends for the damage they've done, Manga, not having another choice, breaks free of Ashura. Crona activates brew, and the black blood within both Crona and Ashura spews forth, concealing both them and the moon, holding Ashura and his madness inside and saving the world. The witches, now allied with the DWMA, teleports them all out of the moon before they could be trapped within the Kishin. Now, with the Kishin defeated and Death gone, Kid takes up the mantle as the new Shinigami, god of death, and vows to end the hunting of witches, claiming that Sol Evans will be the last death weapon. Now that ending really tied up all the loose threads. I feel like this is like an alternate path in a visual novel, where you make one decision, you click on one text box and you get the anime's ending, you click on another one, you get the manga ending. I still like both the endings. I think they're both valid. Now, is the manga objectionably better? Does it round out all of the characters? Does it complete everyone's story arcs? yes. And if you made it all the way to the end of this video, can I be open and honest with you guys? Now, maybe my fault, or maybe the fault of the YouTube algorithm, but the deep dive of the Soul Eater anime is not performing well at all. And it's at this point where I may have to put the Soul Eater not video on hold to focus on making other videos that may perform better. And it's one of those things where, like, I can't take a break from making videos because this is how I pay rent. And my hand is starting to hurt from how much I'm editing and putting so much time on my computer. Not only that, but with how much time it took to make just these 2 videos, I had to put all my eggs into one basket for this month. Now, hopefully you can tell I really like Soul Eater. Honestly, a lot of the time I don't feel like I'm actually good at what I do. I mean, it's hard not to compare myself to seeing other content creators and their videos performing better than mine. All the while, a video that I put a lot of work into is failing horribly. I'm getting really tired, and this is becoming not fun anymore. And like, I can't quit because I'll lose everything I've built up over so many years, and because this is my primary source of income. Every time I think I've figured something out for the channel, something happens to where everything starts getting rocky again, and it eventually grinds to a halt, and I'm floundering and trying to figure out what to do. Like, I think I know what you guys want to watch, but sometimes I'll be so confident in a video and I'll release it, and basically no one watches it, and then I'm like, maybe I don't understand what anybody wants to watch. Maybe I don't understand what's appealing about my content. Maybe I'm wrong about everything. And I really don't want to pump out like the same tired and true like reaction content or the first impressions content that so many other people do all the time. I want to make my content more elevated. I want it to be better. But like the one time I did a reaction to like the Miraculous movie, it performed really well. It just seems like that's what people want. They just want mindless junk food content. And I'm trying to brainstorm something that's like a halfway point between junk food and the stuff that I make now. Because what I'm making right now is such a massive time investment. So there's most likely going to be changes made to the channel. I thought I was at the point where people would see that I would release content, and that content was coming from me, and so you were assured that there's a certain level of quality, that people would watch it because I developed this foundation of trust. But I honestly don't think that's actually happened, and I'm not sure that's ever actually going to happen at this point. I think some of you are at that stage, just not nearly enough, not nearly as much as I thought there was. And I always hate being open about these sorts of things because it can easily just be interpreted as me just complaining. Like, you often hear about a YouTuber complaining and you can wave away the problem because, come on, you're a YouTuber, you have a cushy job, you're not a construction worker breaking your back, which is fair. But what people don't get is that I'm sitting in this room all day, every day, in an apartment that's practically a fucking basement. And I end up getting depressed because I'm inside so much that I forget that I need sunlight. And by the time I'm done working, I'm so tired I don't bother going outside. I just sit on the couch and de-stress and wait for the next day. And there's a lot of benefits to being a YouTuber, don't get me wrong. I'm very aware of that. But when a video fails, the real concern isn't that just I'm gonna be concerned about money. It's realizing I don't get a break, that I have to immediately get on to making the next video. I can't have a breather. I can't go outside. I have to start making the next video so that I can be assured that I can pay rent. It's the dread of, oh, I just have to keep going and I can't stop. And there is no time to just get some vitamin D. Like, shout out to GamerSups, please sponsor me. Anybody sponsor me, because so many of my emails are just obvious scams. Thank goodness for GamerSups, because I need vitamins. I feel like I'm stuck in this room. At first, it was the appeal of the grind, the building something up that I could call my own, and now I just don't have the confidence in what I've made, that maybe it's just a fluke. And I know some of you may hear this and you think like, oh wow, one video doesn't perform well, and you start spiraling, and it's not just like one video, it's the multiple videos of this sort of cycle where it's really good and then it's really bad and then it gets really good again and then it gets really bad again over and over and over again. It's been compounding over a very long time now. And maybe I'm freaking out too much, and maybe I'm not. The worst part is that I don't know. And I think I'm just angry. I think I'm angry at my job because it's not fun anymore. At first, when it's really good, it's really fun because like I get to talk about Soul Eater. Yeah, duh, I love Soul Eater. I have so many thoughts and opinions on Soul Eater. I want to be able to talk and discuss this with people and see their reaction. And then no one watches it. And then maybe I'm just dumb. Maybe I'm not as smart as I thought I was. Maybe I'm not actually good at what I do. And I just can't help but go on that spiral. So I don't know what else to say. That's it. That's what's going on in my head right now. That's what goes on in my head a lot, all the time. So, I don't know what anybody can say that would make me feel better. At this point, I think I've become cynical. And I appreciate some people trying and making like these big comments, but it all just like basically is buck up, champ. You can do it, because you guys don't really know how to help me other than just like engaging with the content, because so much of this is just completely out of our control. Like, kind words are nice, but they don't help. And I'm at a point where I don't even want to see people leaving kind words because it doesn't amount to anything worthwhile. Like, I can't pay my rent with kind words. And kind words haven't stopped me from spiraling before, and it's not stopping me from spiraling now. And I'm so usually tired making videos. Like, I come from a marketing background. I have a marketing degree. I know that there's more that I can be doing to technically, like, boost engagement or boost the amount of conversion to my social media or to my Patreon or all that other kind of stuff. And I don't do it because I just want to get the video done. I just want to be fucking done with it at the end of the day. And like, I'm so tired at the end of the script, and I just say, screw it, just finish it, get it out there. I'm tired of editing. My hand hurts. I'm sick of staring at a screen all the fucking time. And so it's getting to the point to where now the projects that I have a passion in, I'm not putting 100% into, because now I have to just keep content going all the time so that I can live. And the original pursuit of this channel, and I read some of you guys saying like you liked it when I covered 100% of a franchise and not just the show. And I get that, and that's what I wish I could do, but that also costs money and costs more time that I can't afford. I have to get a video out so that I can make money on it. And I feel like my content is lacking because of that. Like, I think I found a nice middle ground, like with the Soul Eater trilogy, or like a lot of the time I do like with anime, where I cover the anime and it's like a stepping stone of the research. Like, you get to see part of the research that I've done. And then I go on to this other part of the research where I cover the entirety of the manga. And that's part of the research that I'm doing. And it's like, you get to see my journey as I am making this big, all-encompassing video, but people still want it all in one big, nice package. And I'm like, I'm sorry, I can't do that anymore. Heck, even the content I make a lot of the time is usually like, just like first impression, reaction-y stuff, because it's fast and easy and I can get it out and I can feel safe for the month. I want to be making content that's better and elevated and covers a full, encompassing, full picture of these things that we love. But I just don't feel secure. I think that it boils down to I don't feel secure. I feel like everyone doesn't feel secure. Like, fuck, our economy is so shit. Everything is expensive. Like, luxuries aren't expensive, but living is expensive. Things like the food and our bills are so expensive, but I can buy furniture for on the cheap, no problem. And I feel guilty asking people to support the Patreon because everyone's going through a financial hard time. Everyone is suffering right now. So like, what, I'm asking people who are suffering to make my suffering less? And that just feels selfish of me. Like, I get it, like, oh, $1 a month, $5 a month. You don't even need to like do like a ton of money in order to like have it be an impact. Like the assuredness of a single dollar is much more than your view. And I don't think people really understand that. Like, I definitely wouldn't be able to do YouTube without the cushion that is Patreon. But even then, I'm not making as much money as I used to on Patreon. And I'm gonna have to start cutting back on like the rewards I give people, because I send out stickers and trading cards to everyone that supports me $5 and up. But even that's becoming too expensive. And it's just fucking stickers. And I know I'm doing like a lot better than most other people. And so part of me, again, is like, what room do I have to complain? A lot of people wish they could sit in a room all day and just watch shows and make jokes. And they don't know the constant pressure of, I have to be funny all the time. I have to be smart all the time. Otherwise, I don't make money. Otherwise, I don't pay bills. And like the pressure of that is a bit more than people think it is. And I understand, I get why there's so many content creators that just like fall into the angry persona, because it's so much easier to be angry than actually try to formulate jokes and formulate commentary and formulate critiques, things that actually require more brain power. It's just easier to just vomit your emotions onto a camera and put that out to the world, because pathos is fine. People always recognize that and resonate with that, and they'll watch it. But then like, and I don't want to say like my brand, but like for lack of a better term, my brand would suffer a lot if I did that. I would be destroying the foundation of trust that I'm trying to develop. So yeah, that's everything. I don't know. I know what I said about kind words. So, you know, if you made it all the way to the end of this video and sat through the entirety of the rant, and you're not good with words and you don't know what to say, then just like, I don't know, fucking comment, finally, the black upper lip is back. So that I know that you at least sat through what I said. At least that would give a little bit of closure, knowing that people heard me, or maybe we heard you. Yeah, that's probably better. I just saw some people like complaining that I don't do the black upper lip, and that's like on my profile picture for the channel. And I made like a whole joke about like Shigo having the black upper lip and how hot it is. And I don't do it often because it's kind of annoying to deal with it if you don't have a good liquid lipstick that actually adheres to your lip, because it'll stick to your teeth or your bottom lip enough a lot, and it looks bad. So whatever, that's entirely moot. I hope you enjoyed this video. Stay beautiful and keep playing.